Looking for a vegetarian dinner recipe? If so, try vegetable milanesas. Although a classic Argentine milanesa is a thin piece of beef coated in breadcrumbs, doing the same thing to pieces of vegetables like eggplant or butternut squash yields fantastic results. If you're looking for a new and unique vegetarian recipe for dinner, keep watching. Last year I gave you some recipes for classic beef milanesas, but this year, because it's the new year, people are trying to eat healthier after the holidays, and also because I've noticed that there's a lot of interest in meatless options, I wanted to share this recipe with you. For those of you who don't know, milanesa in Argentina and other Latin American countries is a thin piece of meat that is breaded and fried. It can be served just as is, or as in the Milanesa alla Napolitana video I released, Argentina's version of veal parmesan. It can be topped with ham, cheese, tomato sauce. It can be basically turned into a pizza, and that is absolutely delicious. So if you're interested in that kind of recipe, be sure to check it out. But like I said, I feel like a lot of people, it's their New Year's resolution to eat a little bit healthier, and not just healthier, but also not eat so much meat. So I wanted to show this classic Argentine recipe with you. These vegetable milanesas are very easy to make. They're basically just pieces of vegetable that are covered in breadcrumbs and then fried. But in my case, what I like to do is I like to bake them in the oven, because as you know, even though I do eat cakes and pies, I do like to try and stay in shape a little bit. Although I guess you could use other types of vegetables for these vegetable milanesas or milanesas de verduras, I think butternut squash and eggplant are the best choices because they're thick and they are the most traditional. When choosing a butternut squash, I like to choose the squash that is really heavy. So I know this one is cut, but look at how orange that is. It's so beautiful. What I've noticed with butternut squash is that the darker the orange color, the sweeter it is. And what I've noticed is that squashes that seem heavier than they should be are sweeter. So if you are buying a butternut squash and you're not sure which is going to be the best, pick up maybe 3, 4, or 5, and the one that feels like, this is heavier than the others, that's the one that I always go for, and that technique has not disappointed me. What I like to do with the butternut squash is I just take off the peel like this, and then I cut them into these pieces that are between 1/4 of an inch and 1/2 of an inch thick. I know that's kind of a big range, but I think it's kind of flexible. You don't want them to be too thick, but you don't want them to be too thin. So now that that's off, I'm going to make this into 2 because I want some thicker ones. There, I just put that off to the side. You can see what I have so far. With the butternut squash, or excuse me, with the eggplant, I did the same thing. What I did is I put it like this, and then the tip that's connected to the plant, I chopped that off. I did make a few round slices, but then I held it like this, and I held it like this, and I literally just cut it on the side like that, 1/2 of an inch thick. If your knife slips a little bit, that's okay. Honestly, I don't think you have to be obsessing with accuracy. You just don't want them to be too thick. You don't want them to be too thin. You want them to be about the same thickness, like I said, between 1/2 of an inch to 1 inch thick. This one is kind of not even there, so maybe I'll trim off a little bit here. just so that all parts of it cook evenly. But like I said, I'm not too concerned. And then I'm going to put them into the flour and then the egg mix. In this egg mixture so far, all I have are 4 large eggs, to which I'm going to add some crushed garlic. I have maybe 5 or 6 cloves here. Probably not going to use all of it because I do have some beef milanesas I'm going to make because I'm going through all this quilombo now anyway. And also some onion. I do not have exact measurements because honestly I don't really have exact measurements. It's all by sight. You think is appropriate. If you like garlic, add more garlic. If you don't like garlic as much as I do, don't add as much. But just so you can see what it looks like. And then pepper. And then some oregano and parsley. But you will notice I do have salt there, but I'm not going to add salt. Because Argentines say not to add salt when you're marinating the milanesas because it will draw out the water. Whether or not that is true, I don't know. I just go with what they say, so this is how I do it. Do you have to marinate these? No, you don't. You could even just omit the spices, just cut the vegetables into the flour, the egg mixture, and then the breadcrumbs, and then fry them or bake them. But this makes it so much more flavorful, especially whether you're doing the vegetables or the beef or maybe chicken or pork. If you let the vegetables or the meat sit in this egg and herb mixture for 6 to 8 hours, if not overnight, these are going to be delicious. Both the meat and the vegetables will be incredible. The difference between letting them sit overnight and doing them right away is very shocking. There's a huge difference in flavor. So like I said, I'm just going to put it in here, toss it around to coat it. I take a piece of the eggplant. I'm going to do the same. You may need to add more egg and add more spices as you do this. Like I said, there's really no recipe because it all depends on how many you're making. So just so you have an idea of what it's supposed to look like I said, I like this because it's so flavorful. You should see the spices in there and the garlic and the onion. That is what it is supposed to look like. If you want to, you could add some mustard. This is sabora. It's a type of Argentine mustard. It's different from American mustard. It has cinnamon, nutmeg, garlic, and a ton of other things. It's so flavorful. It's incredible. I'll see if I can put a link to where you can buy some. Some people like to add this to the egg mixture. I've done it, and I honestly don't really care for doing that. I think sometimes less is more. So if you just do this, trust me, this meal will be incredible. So I'm going to finish doing this, and then when it's time to put the breadcrumbs on, I will bring you back. I realized that putting the vegetables into the egg mixture over here kind of put it far away from the camera, so I wanted to show you what everything looked like up close. The butternut squash and the eggplant have that egg and herb mixture on all the pieces. I know it's not completely submerged, but I would have to add so much egg to this that honestly I think it's not really worth it. This is how I usually do it. Now I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. I might mix it a couple times, but other than that, now it's just time that we have to get through. The butternut squash and the eggplant is now done marinating in the egg and herb mixture, so now it's time to put on the breadcrumbs. This has actually been marinating for 23 hours. I think 6 to 8 is minimum. 12 is probably ideal. No more than 24. If you go longer than that, whether it's meat or it's these vegetable milanesas, I think you run the risk of having things get soggy. But honestly, it'll be okay. Like I said earlier in the video, there is no salt in this egg mixture because Argentines think that marinating milanesas, whether they be meat or vegetables, with salt, a lot of people say it draws out the moisture, so there's no salt in there. But I'm going to add salt to the breadcrumbs. Here I have some plain breadcrumbs. I would say probably around 7 to 8 ounces, to which I'm going to add some salt. I'm thinking probably half a teaspoon, not a ton, but I do like a little bit of salt. I did mix these up once about halfway through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take from the bottom first. I'm going to shake off the excess. As you can see, there's the spices. What I'm going to do is take the breadcrumbs, pat it down. Do the same thing on the other side. Pat it down, shake off the excess, and put it over here. Now I'm going to do a piece of butternut squash, exactly the same way. So with this, you want to make sure you get the sides too. Shake off the excess, put it over there. I'm done making the vegetable milanesas. They're all breaded. As you can see, I stacked them on this plate and I put pieces of wax paper in between them so that they don't stick. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them sit in the refrigerator for half an hour before I cook them, just so that the breading has enough time to adhere. It's now been a couple hours and I'm ready to make these vegetable milanesas. I brought them out of the refrigerator about 20 minutes ago so that they could come a little bit to room temperature. Not sure if that really makes a difference, but that is what some people do. This pizza pan I coated in 1 teaspoon of canola oil. Any sort of neutral vegetable oil will do, but don't use extra virgin olive oil or most olive oil sprays because the smoke point is lower, and since we're going to bake these at 425, it's going to give the food kind of an off taste. So if you use something like a highly refined vegetable oil, the finished product will taste a lot cleaner. Obviously we're going to bake these. You could fry these, but trying to be a little bit healthier. So like I said, there's the 1 teaspoon of oil on this pan. All I'm simply going to do is take these milanesas up off of the wax paper and simply place them onto, do a nice one. Simply place them onto the pan. They are going to bake for 5 to 7 minutes per side at 425. So after 5 to 7 minutes, I'm going to take them out, and I'm going to flip them, and then I'll do the other side. Actually, this one seems to have some stuff caked onto it, but that is okay. These vegetable milanesas just came out of the oven. They were in at 425 for 7 minutes. Now I'm going to flip them with this fork. You can see they browned fairly nicely. Those brown a little bit better because they were flatter on the baking tray, but it's fine. Now it's going to go back in for 7 more minutes. Now the vegetable milanesas are done. They were in for 7 more minutes on the other side. Flip this one over. You can see they are browned on both sides, especially the eggplant, because the eggplant was a little bit flatter. Still absolutely incredibly delicious. These vegetable milanesas were incredibly delicious. These are the perfect vegetarian recipe for dinner, not only because they're delicious, but also because they're very unique. Maybe it's just me, but I've never seen this recipe in the United States. Because the butternut squash and the eggplant soaked in the herb-infused eggs overnight, they were incredibly moist and flavorful. Although a little bit of lemon juice tastes really good on these, honestly, they're still perfectly delicious on their own. Although they're definitely good enough to eat plain, you can also make them a la napolitana, which basically means putting pizza toppings on top of these vegetable milanesas. Adding a bit of cheese is a great way to add protein to this vegetarian dinner. However, in my opinion, I think these vegetable milanesas taste fine just the way that they are. Just like with the beef version, since making these milanesas is a lot of quilombo or a lot of trouble, you could definitely make a lot at once and then freeze some. Take them right out of the freezer and bake them without defrosting, and they'll be delicious. Like I said earlier in the video, I know that a lot of people try to eat healthier after the holidays. So I hope that this vegetable milanesa recipe helps you do that. In fact, last week's puchero recipe and this week's vegetable milanesa recipe are the beginning of a short, healthy Argentine recipe series for the new year. My goal is to open the eyes of my English-speaking audience and teach them about healthy recipes that they've probably never seen before. So stay tuned, it's going to be delicious. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. For more information about Argentinian food and Southern recipes, please visit my website, parnaldechef.com, and be sure to follow me on social media. Right now, I'm most active on Twitter and Instagram. Once again, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye!